So growing up, I had a sign on my bedroom door, and it said, "Hire a teenager while they still know everything." I don't know if you guys have seen this sign before. And my dad put it up because he was sarcastic. He thought, every time I said, I know, Dad, he put this sign up. And I left it there because I actually believed it was true. I thought it was hysterical that he put a sign up that was grammatically incorrect to prove that he knew more than I did. So I left it there. Hire a teenager while they still know everything, right? So I was probably a problematic student in high school. Teachers would put out assignments, and I would read them once, and I would toss them aside, and I would make up my own assignment. I took assignments more as suggestions, as one way to learn, and then I took it from there. I made up my own project. And as the karmic engine of the universe works, I now find myself teaching 93 teenagers who are all know-it-alls, and I love them for it. I love their energy. I love the way they challenge me. I'm very privileged to share the most extraordinary laboratory with these 93 teens. They've been there from the beginning. The Farm Club has helped to design a space that's going to be the outdoor classroom. This is groundbreaking last year, March 25th, so they helped build the farm. Here's a math class who's using compost bins and cold frames as a lesson in how to make the least amount of cuts, how much wood do you need, calculating all that out and building these compost and cold frames. Our teens last summer harvested 9,000 pounds of fresh produce for the community. It was sold at the farmer's market. They helped to sell it at the farmer's market. They did cooking demonstrations at the farmer's market. Our farmer's market accepts EBT, WIC, and senior checks. Senior checks. The kids get to work with my amazing partner, Farmer B, who has 10 years organic farming experience. So they get to learn about the value of our land and of our water and how to maintain resources. Here they are playing with me. Every day they play with me. And they also learn how to cook community meals from the farm fresh produce. So these are meals that they're preparing for people who are working on the farm. They prepare meals during classes. They learn how to make dollar harvest meals to try to combat those dollar menus at the fast food stores. And so most of the work that I've been doing this year has been co-teaching with the Community Action Now teacher at the school. She is the service behind the High School for Public Service. So this farm is a 1-acre farm on the front lawn of the High School for Public Service. It is a Title I public school in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. This class is a 10th grade class. We define health very broadly. The way we define health is the students study sustainable farming and its effects on the health of our bodies, our culture, and our environment. Sometimes culture is lost in the mix in some programs. We think it's very important. So this class, the way that I like to work on the farm, I like to set up experiments and events for the students to discover the beauty of the world. And I think that makes me more of an architect than a teacher, and in fact, I am an architect. So sometimes I don't know what's going to happen. I set up these experiments, and lucky for me, this Community Action Now teacher goes along with my experiments. She goes with the flow. She loves what comes out of it. And so I thought I would share with you today some of the things that we've learned from our students. I'm going to put this down for 1 second. So during our Summer Youth Employment Program, my students and I, we went out and we surveyed the community. We were looking for what food is available. Food is available. And we did a 20-minute radius. We charted our 2 favorite fruits and vegetables and our 2 favorite guilty pleasures. Guilty pleasures being things that we know are bad for our bodies, they're bad for the planet. We eat them anyway. We sometimes even crave them. And yes, farmers have guilty food pleasures too. We aren't immune. So we charted these, and the results were staggering. We found that keep in mind this is peak growing season, this is summer. We found that the environment weighted completely towards our guilty pleasures. So we were rewarded 100 times seeing our favorite guilty pleasures. We saw one of our favorite fruits and vegetables within a 20-minute walk. So let me break that down a little bit more, right? So we are 100 times more likely to buy the bag of Cheetos than to buy a head of lettuce. That's a pretty powerful environmental factor. So let's break it down a little bit more. Every store had our guilty pleasure. Let's talk about that one vegetable that we found. It was actually a combination. So one guy's favorite vegetable was a head of lettuce. And he found a brown and decomposing head of lettuce, but he couldn't give it a full point. There was a woman who found a tomato that was not quite ripe, but somehow moldy, if that's possible. And so she couldn't give it a full point. So together they said, we'll give them half credit. So we found one vegetable. I don't know about you, but 20 minutes is a long way to go for a broken down head of lettuce and a nasty tomato. And so I asked the kids, you know, why half credit seems a little crazy. And they said, well, at least they tried. And I don't think this is the way that we want our kids to see our food system, that at least we tried. You know, the government and big corporations shouldn't receive half credit for feeding some of the people, but not all of the people. So if these students weren't to give out half credit, they would probably give our food system a failing grade. So there's a movement that's been brewing across all the major cities in the United States for the last 30 years. It's a movement that recognizes the structural inequalities in our food system, that our real food is not distributed equally among our people. It's called the Food Justice Movement. And if you haven't heard those two words together, here's what some of our students had to say about food justice in their community. This group says, when everyone has an equal opportunity to getting healthy food. I like this one that says, healthy food equals life. Justice equals equal right. We all should have an equal right to life. They're equating food to life. This one is a little bit harder to deconstruct. The right to choose what you want to eat. In this community, it's a heavily Caribbean American community, so at our farmers market, we have a lot of callaloo and bitter melon. I think it's really important when we talk about food justice issues that people want to have food around them that they know how to cook, that they're familiar with. So part of food justice is about getting food that people understand to them so that they can practice their cultural rituals, and food is a very important part of that. Now, I like this one. Food justice is to be able to have 100% access to healthy food and urban farming without discriminating. I just like it because they, oops, I'm going to go back. I just like it because they say urban farming. So when our children suffer from malnutrition, they can't focus, forget about learning. Malnutrition leads to chronic diseases like obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, and also to behavior problems, which are often misdiagnosed. Now, if I was to wage a war on a group of people, this is exactly what I would do. I would cut off their food supply. Hunger is a form of violence. So, you know, keep them slow, keep them tired, keep them sick, so they don't have the power to have a voice. And so I sometimes fear that, let me back up. So this is exactly what we're doing to our kids in Brooklyn. 1 in 5 kids in Brooklyn are food insecure, meaning that they lack access to fresh produce. These are people that are particularly concentrated in our low-income communities. We probably know this. And what I'm fearing about the sustainability movement is that, you know, our students really face some of the largest problems of human history. And we need them to be sharp. We need them to be motivated. But instead, we're feeding them chemicals. We're feeding them hormones. We're feeding them antibiotics. So what I fear is that we're wasting our most precious natural resource, which is our youth, who are very powerful. Most people consider food and water to be basic human rights. But there's still 1 billion people starving around the world, and there's 1 in 3 Americans who suffer from obesity. Now, there's a lot of cheap food-like substances, if you are a convert of Michael Pollan's language, that exist all over our grocery stores. And these prices are artificially low. They don't include the social and environmental costs of that food. Some people estimate that a fast food burger would actually cost $200 if you factored in all of those costs. But those are only the costs that we know about. So there still be more long-term costs that we aren't aware of yet. So what we're doing when we put our food system in the power of a couple corporations is that we're privatizing the profit to a wealthy few, and we're socializing all of the risks. And we all know that when when that happens, the burden falls very heavily on the people who don't have a political voice. So in 1910, 25% of Americans' food budgets were spent on food. Today, only 10%. So less than half. So does that mean that we value food half as much today as we did in 1910? Or does it mean that we value a price tag twice as much today as we did in 1910? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm banking on the second. So the USDA does help us. They're spending $314 billion on food stamp benefits to many people in the nation. However, they're also spending $60 billion on subsidies, which go towards making that $200 burger so cheap. So how many burgers could somebody on food benefits buy? Let's think about that. Now, I don't condone this, but what if a fast food restaurant accepted food benefits? A single person in New York City gets $205 in SNAP benefits each month. So that means they could buy one burger on their food stamps if they paid the real price. But if they paid the current price, they could buy 57 Big Macs. So what if those subsidies that we're paying to make the Big Mac cheaper, what if we started to move some of those subsidies into fruits and vegetables? Now, the students get pretty upset when they see this, when the government's telling them to eat one way and then feeding them something else through subsidies. So while I discuss sustainable farming with my students, I'm the bearer of bad news like I have been today. I'm really sorry. But I think there's something empowering here. We are all the system. We are all part of the market system that right now is valuing or is not valuing our natural resources and instead treating them as commodities. But we can do something about that. We can stand up. We can have a voice. So my students had some ideas. And here's what they came up with. They came up with giving you guys some homework. So there's a couple options. Option one, Americans waste 40% of the food that they buy. They throw it straight in the garbage can. Now, you know you have it, that moldy cheese, that lost piece of lettuce in your drawer, those leftovers that you're sick of, all of that. So instead of throwing away that food, buy only what you're going to eat and eat it before it spoils. Take that 40% of your food budget. You won't even notice it's gone. You've already spent it in other times, right? Take that 40% of your food budget, redirect it to a food justice organization. That's one thing that they think could help. Second thing they think could help is everybody has it, that snack craving in the middle of the afternoon. I get it. Sometimes I walk by a donut, slow down. And so instead of spending that 10 minutes snacking every afternoon, put down the donut, pick up your phone, call your local politician. Tell Bloomberg you want to support urban farming on public land in New York City. If you don't believe urban farming can help, tell your congressperson that you want to change this food subsidy pyramid and support fresh fruits and vegetables, possibly in school lunches. And option three, I'm making up on the spot after everything I've heard today. I want to invite any school out there that has a lot of technology to come share our story. We don't have a lot of computers. We don't have any cameras. We don't have any video. And it would be great if students could collaborate to bring this story to life. And if we kept it local, that would be really fabulous. So that's my option. That's option three. So option one, shop like you mean it. Eat like your life depends on it. Option two, put down the donut, pick up your phone. And option three I made up, so it's not up there. Just to say that my students are very serious about all this. I have students who have, they've gone vegetarian, they've given up soda, they're going home, they're cooking with their parents, they're shopping with their parents. I have one student who has vowed to eat breakfast every day so that he comes to class ready to participate, which is awesome. And so I wanted to share this quote with you. It is a mistake to think you can solve any major problems just with potatoes. And I think Douglas Adams is correct again. I think there's too much emphasis put on talking about food and not enough emphasis being placed on the food system. We are all the system. We all have the power to change this. We all have the right to say that we value natural resources, people, land, air, water, farmers. So I think that We need a fair and equitable food system, one that values our land, water, air, and people, one that gives everyone the right to fresh, clean, safe, and culturally significant food. Above all, a system where participants have a say in how their local resources are used. So along the corridors, students have painted things on the doors of each classroom. And this is my favorite. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. So I just wanted to close by saying that my students know an awful lot about food justice. They live it every day. They're just learning how to use their voice, and you're going to hear a lot more from them very soon. I hope that you join our discussion. Thank you.